The Great Hall of Station Prime was filled with aliens from across the galaxy. 12 species had sent their leaders to this meeting. They came from worlds with different suns, different histories, and different bodies. Some had scales, some had fur. Some were made of gas that floated in special containers. But today, they all shared one thing. They were all watching the humans. The message had arrived 3 days ago. The Imperium, one of the oldest and most feared civilizations in the galaxy, had declared war on Earth. There were insect-like creatures with hard shells and sharp claws. They had conquered 17 worlds in the last 1,000 years. Their fleet numbered over 800 warships, each one capable of destroying a small moon. And now they wanted Earth. On the human, Admiral Park stood in the command center of Earth's orbital station. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had fought in 3 wars during his lifetime, but none of them were like this. None of them threatened the entire human species. Ambassador stood beside him. She was younger, with black hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her job was to speak for Earth in the Galactic Assembly. Today, she had no words. What could anyone say when facing extinction? The message from the played again on the screen. Their leader, a massive creature covered in black armor, spoke in a clicking voice that the translator turned into human words. Humans of Earth, you have expanded into space without permission. You have taken worlds that do not belong to you. You have refused to bow before the Imperium. For these crimes we declare war. Surrender now and we will make your deaths quick. Resist and we will make them slow. You have 30 days to respond. Admiral Park turned off the screen. The room was silent. How many ships can we send? Ambassador asked. The Admiral looked at her for a long moment, then he spoke one word. 1. The Ambassador's face did not change. She had expected this answer. Earth's fleet was small. Most of their ships were built for exploration, not war. They had defense platforms around Earth and the colonies, but those could not be moved. If they stripped every station, every patrol, every outpost, they might gather 50 ships. Against 800, it would make no difference. But one ship was different. One ship was a message. Though she said, it was not a question. The Admiral nodded. 3 hours later, Earth's response was sent to the Galactic Assembly. The alien leaders gathered to hear it. They expected surrender. They expected begging. They expected humans to ask for help, for protection, for mercy. Instead, they got a single sentence. Earth will send one vessel to answer the declaration. The reaction was immediate. The ambassador, a creature like a giant mantis, made a sound that the translators identified as laughter. The beings made of colored gas swirled in their containers with amusement. Even the hegemony, a stone-faced creature who never showed emotion, allowed his mouth to curl upward. One ship. The humans were sending one ship against the greatest military power in the known galaxy. They have chosen death, the ambassador said. At least they choose it with some dignity. Dignity? The ambassador rippled with pink and orange colors. This is not dignity. This is stupidity. They are like small animals that bare their teeth at a predator. It changes nothing. The leaned forward in his chair. His species, the hegemony, had watched humans since they first left their planet. They had always been curious about these soft, short-lived creatures who seemed to fear nothing. Perhaps, the said slowly, there is something we do not know. The other ambassadors looked at him with confusion. What could one ship do? The asked. They have 800, the mathematics are simple. Mathematics, the repeated. Yes, the mathematics are simple, and yet the humans do not seem afraid. I have studied them for many years. They are not stupid creatures. They do not seek death for no reason. Then what reason could they have? They did not answer. He simply watched the human transmission with his cold, ancient eyes. Far from Station Prime, in a secret shipyard hidden in the asteroid belt of the Sol system, Captain walked through the corridors of her ship. It was not like other human vessels. It was larger, darker, and covered with equipment that no alien species had ever seen. The ship had been built over 200 years. Every human breakthrough in science, in weapons, in engineering had been added to its design. It was not a warship in the normal sense. It was something else. Something that humanity had hoped they would never need to use. Captain stopped at a window and looked out at the stars. She was 43 years old. She had served in the fleet for 25 years. She had never lost a ship, never lost a battle, never lost her nerve. But standing here, knowing what was coming, she felt something cold in her stomach. Not fear. She had forgotten how to feel fear long ago. It was anticipation. Her first officer, Commander O, found her there. He was a serious man with a scar across his chin from an old fight. "The crew is ready," he said. 120 volunteers. All of them know the odds." "The odds," Captain repeated. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "The galaxy thinks we are flying to our deaths." "Are we?" She turned to look at him. Her eyes were calm, steady, and absolutely certain. "No," she said, "we are flying to theirs." The engines of the began to glow. The ship moved slowly out of the shipyard, past the asteroids, toward the open darkness of space. Behind it, Earth hung like a blue jewel in the black. One ship, 120 souls, against an empire. The galaxy laughed. They would not laugh for long. The moved through space like a ghost. Its engines made no sound in the vacuum. Its black hull reflected nothing. To anyone watching, it would look like a shadow passing between the stars. Inside the ship, Captain sat in her quarters and read the crew roster for the 100th time. 120 names. 120 people who had volunteered to fly into what the galaxy believed was certain death. Engineers, pilots, weapons officers, medical staff. Each one had been chosen from thousands of applicants. Each one was the best at what they did. She put down the roster and looked at the small photograph on her desk. It showed a young girl with bright eyes and a wide smile. Her daughter, now grown and living on Earth with children of her own, had said goodbye to her 3 weeks ago. She had not told her where she was going or why. Some things were better left unsaid. A knock came at her door. She straightened her uniform and called out, "Enter." Chief Engineer stepped inside. He was an older man with white hair and thick glasses that he refused to replace with implants. He said he liked the weight of them on his nose. It reminded him he was still human. "Captain," he said, "the fold drive is ready. We can jump in 2 hours." "Good, how is the crew?" Paused, nervous but ready. "They know what we carry." "And what do we carry, Engineer?" The old man smiled. It was a small, tired smile. 200 years of human anger, Captain. 200 years of being laughed at, looked down upon, treated like children by species who think they are better than us. The carries all of that. Nodded slowly. She understood what he meant. Humanity had entered the galactic community 3 centuries ago. In all that time, they had been treated as newcomers, as primitives, as a species that had not yet earned its place among the stars. The elder races tolerated them but never respected them. The declaration of war was just the latest insult. The insect empire believed humans would surrender without a fight. They believed Earth was weak, afraid, easy to conquer. They were wrong. "Get the crew ready," said. "We fold in 2 hours." The ship hummed with activity as the crew prepared for the jump. Fold travel was faster than light, bending space to bring 2 distant points together. It was uncomfortable and dangerous, but it would cut their journey from years to days. Lieutenant Commander Han, the tactical officer, ran final checks on the weapons systems. She was a small woman with sharp features and sharper eyes. She had designed half of the targeting programs herself, spending years making them perfect. "All weapons online," she reported to the bridge. "Primary, secondary, and tertiary systems ready." Beside her, Weapons Officer Commander O reviewed the armament list on his screen. They carried weapons that no alien species had ever seen. Some were based on old human designs, improved and perfected over centuries. Others were entirely new, created in secret laboratories that officially did not exist. The gravity bombs are stable, he said. The neutron lance is charged. The drone swarm is ready for deployment. Navigation Officer Shin calculated the fold coordinates from her station. She was young, only 28, but she had a gift for mathematics that bordered on supernatural. She could calculate jump points in her head faster than most computers. Course plotted, she announced. 18 days to home space, 3-fold jumps with rest periods between. Captain entered the bridge and took her seat in the command chair. The crew fell silent, watching her. She looked at each of them in turn, meeting their eyes. "You all know why we are here," she said. Her voice was calm and steady. "They believe we are weak. The galaxy believes we are fools. They think one ship against 800 is a joke." She paused, letting the words hang in the air. "They are wrong. This ship, this crew, represents everything humanity has built in secret for 200 years. We are not flying to our deaths. We are flying to deliver a message that the galaxy will never forget." She turned to the navigation officer. "Begin the fold sequence." The ship shuddered as the fold drive activated. Space bent around them, twisting in ways that hurt to look at. The stars stretched into lines of light. Then, with a sound like thunder, they vanished from the Sol system. It reappeared 14 light-years away, in empty space between stars. The crew recovered from the jump, some vomiting, others simply sitting still until their heads stopped spinning. Fold travel was never pleasant. "Jump successful," reported. "All systems normal, next jump in 6 hours." During the rest period, Doctor walked through the ship, checking on the crew. She was the chief medical officer, a gentle woman with warm hands and a soft voice. Her job was to keep everyone healthy in body and mind. She found many of them in the common room, eating and talking quietly. Some played cards. Others watched old movies from Earth. A few sat alone, staring at nothing, lost in their thoughts. One young engineer, a man named Iam, looked up as she passed. "Doctor," he said, "do you think we will survive?" Sat down beside him. She thought about the question for a long moment. "I think," she said finally, "that survival is not the point. The point is what we do before the end. Whether we win or lose, we will show the galaxy what humans are capable of. We will make them remember us." Nodded slowly. It was not the comforting answer he wanted, but it was an honest one. And right now, honesty was worth more than comfort. They made its second jump, then its third. 18 days passed in silence and preparation. The crew trained constantly, running drills until they could perform their duties in their sleep. They ate together, slept in shifts, and spoke little about what waited ahead. On the final day, Captain called the crew to the bridge. They gathered in the corridors, watching her on screens throughout the ship. "In 1 hour we will arrive at the home system," she said. 800 ships are waiting for us. The largest fleet assembled in a century. They expect us to die." She smiled then, a real smile, full of something dark and fierce. "Let us disappoint them." They made its final fold. Space twisted. Stars bent. And when the light cleared, the ship hung alone at the edge of an alien empire, facing a wall of metal and death. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin. The fleet hung in space like a dark cloud. 800 ships, each one bristling with weapons, each one crewed by soldiers who had conquered a dozen worlds. They formed a wall between the human ship and a barrier of metal and death that stretched across the stars. On the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, the largest ship in the fleet, High Admiral Os watched his tactical display with compound eyes that saw in every direction at once. He was old for his black shell from countless battles, his claws dulled by age but still sharp enough to kill. "One ship," he said, his voice clicking and buzzing. They sent one ship. His officers gathered around him, their antennae twitching with amusement. The humans were even more foolish than they had believed. One vessel against the might of the Imperium was not courage. It was suicide. "Should we destroy it, Admiral?" one of them asked. Oz considered the question. He could order the attack now and end this in seconds, but something made him pause. The humans had not fled. They had not begged for mercy. They had sent a single ship and flown it directly into the heart of enemy space. Either they were insane or they knew something he did not. "Open a communication channel," he ordered. "Let us hear what they have to say before they die." On the bridge crew watched the alien fleet in silence. Lieutenant Commander hand-counted the ships on her tactical display. 812, to be exact. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers, and the massive flagship that floated at the center like a metal mountain. "They are hailing us," communications officer reported. Captain straightened in her chair. "Put them on screen." The face of High Admiral Oss appeared before them. His insect features were impossible to read, but his voice carried clear contempt. "Human vessel, you have entered sovereign space. Your presence here is an act of war. Surrender your ship and crew immediately and we will grant you quick deaths. Resist and we will make you suffer." Looked at the alien commander without expression. Her hands rested calmly on the arms of her chair. Her voice, when she spoke, was steady as stone. "This is Captain of the Earth vessel. We are here to deliver humanity's response to your declaration of war." "Response?" Oss made a sound that might have been laughter. "What response can one ship give? You are surrounded by the greatest fleet in the galaxy. Your response is meaningless." "Our response is this," leaned forward slightly. "Withdraw your declaration, return your fleet to your borders, leave humanity alone. Do this, and we will return home without firing a single shot." The bridge erupted in clicking laughter. 800 ships against one, and the humans were demanding surrender. It was the funniest thing they had heard in years. "You are either very brave or very stupid," Oss said. "It does not matter which. The result will be the same." "This is your only warning," said. Her voice did not waver. "I will not repeat it." "Enough talk." The Admiral raised one clawed hand. "Destroy them." 50 ships broke from the formation and accelerated toward their weapons charged, glowing with deadly energy. They moved fast, eager for the kill. On the human bridge, watch them come. 50 contacts incoming. Weapons range in 40 seconds. Commander O said quietly, "You may begin." His hands moved across his console. The first system activated. The seemed to split apart. Where one ship had floated, now there were dozens, spreading in every direction. The sensors screamed with confusion. Which one was real? Which ones were false? The attack wing hesitated, trying to lock onto a target. The hesitation cost them everything. A beam of light shot from the reel so bright it hurt to look at. It was not like any weapon they had seen before. It did not burn. It did not explode. It simply touched the lead enemy cruiser and the cruiser came apart. Not in pieces, not in fire, but in atoms. The ship dissolved like sugar in water, spreading into a cloud of nothing. Before they could react, 9 more beams found their targets. 10 ships, 3 seconds, gone. The remaining 40 ships in the attack wing stopped dead in space. Their crews stared at their sensors, trying to understand what had happened. 10 of their comrades had simply ceased to exist. No wreckage, no survivors, no warning. "What was that?" one captain screamed into his communicator. "What weapon was that?" On the Eternal Conquest, Admiral Oss stared at his display in shock. His compound eyes moved rapidly, processing information that made no sense. 10 capital ships, each one capable of destroying a planet, had been erased in 3 heartbeats. "All ships," he commanded, his voice no longer steady. "All ships, open fire. Concentrate everything on the human vessel. Destroy it now." The remaining ships of the attack wing turned their weapons on the beams of energy shot through space. Missiles launched in swarms. Enough firepower to crack a moon flew toward the single human ship. And missed. The moved like nothing they had ever seen. It did not dodge in normal space. It bent the universe around itself. Weapons fire curved away as if pushed by invisible hands. Missiles changed course mid-flight and flew into empty darkness. Some shots even turned completely around and struck ships instead. The attack wing died in confusion and fire, destroyed by their own weapons and their own fear. On the bridge, engineer monitored the gravity manipulation systems. This was his life's work, the ability to control the fabric of space itself. It was not magic. It was science, 200 years of human science finally set free. "Systems holding," he reported. "We can maintain this for another hour." Captain nodded. "That will be enough." She turned to Commander O, Phase 2. Smiled. It was not a kind smile. "With pleasure, Captain." He pressed a button, and they released its swarm. Thousands of small objects flew from the ship, each one no larger than a human fist. They scattered through space like seeds in wind, moving faster than any weapon could track. They reached the enemy fleet in seconds, attaching to hulls, slipping through cracks, finding weak points that no alien engineer had thought to protect. Then they activated. Each tiny device created a gravity singularity, a point of such intense force that nothing could escape it. Ships crumpled like paper. Hulls collapsed inward. Warriors died screaming as their own vessels crushed them into nothing. The formation broke. Ships fled in every direction, crashing into each other, firing wildly at shadows. Panic spread through the fleet like a disease. Admiral Os watched his empire's pride die around him. 500 ships destroyed, 300 more fleeing, and still the human vessel floated untouched, a dark shape against the stars, delivering death with mechanical precision. He had made a terrible mistake. They all had. Fire bloomed across the darkness of space. Ships died in silence, their crews never knowing what killed them. The gravity drones tore through the fleet like invisible wolves, hunting, killing, destroying everything they touched. On the bridge of the Eternal Conquest, Admiral Os gripped his command chair with claws that left marks in the metal. His tactical display showed disaster. 500 ships gone. The fleet that had conquered 17 worlds was being torn apart by a single enemy vessel. "How is this possible?" one of his officers screamed. "They are one ship, one." Os did not answer. He was watching the human vessel move through his fleet, bending space around itself, untouchable and terrible. He had commanded 100 battles. He had never seen anything like this. Far across the galaxy on Station Prime, the Galactic Assembly watched in stunned silence. Their observation drones had followed the into space, expecting to record a quick execution. Instead, they were witnessing something else entirely. The ambassador's mandibles clicked nervously. "This cannot be real. Our sensors must be broken." "The sensors are working perfectly," the ambassador replied, its gaseous body swirling with anxious colors. "The human ship is doing exactly what we are seeing. It is destroying the fleet." "But how? Where did they get this technology? We have watched them for 3 centuries. They had nothing like this." The of the hegemony sat perfectly still, his ancient eyes fixed on the display. Unlike the others, he did not seem surprised. He seemed thoughtful. "We watched what they wanted us to see," he said quietly. "We saw their public ships, their exploration vessels, their colonial transports. We never looked for what they might be hiding." Hiding an entire weapons program for 200 years. "Humans live short lives," they said, "but they think in long terms. They plan for futures they will never see. They build for children not yet born. We forgot this. Forgot this." He paused. "We all forgot this." On the crew worked in focused silence. There was no celebration, no cheering. This was not a game. This was a job, and they were doing it with cold efficiency. Lieutenant Commander hand-tracked the remaining ships on her display. 300 still operational, but most were fleeing toward the edge of the system. The fleet's formation had completely collapsed. Ships flew in random directions, some crashing into each other in their panic. Admiral Oss is retreating toward she reported, his flagship and about 50 escorts. Captain studied the display. The hung in the distance, a red and brown planet covered in metal cities, billions of lives. She had no intention of harming civilians, but Oss did not know that. Follow them, she ordered. Keep distance, let them run. The moved forward, slow and steady, like a predator that knows its prey cannot escape. Behind it, the wreckage of 500 ships drifted in the void. Navigation Officer Shin made small adjustments to their course. Matching their speed, Captain. We can catch them whenever you want. Not yet. Let them feel what it means to be hunted. In the medical bay, Doctor treated the few injuries the crew had suffered. A broken arm from a fall during evasive maneuvers, a concussion from a console that sparked. Nothing serious. The defensive systems had kept them safe. Engineer entered the medical bay, his face tired but satisfied. Doctor, how are our people? Minor injuries only. Your gravity systems work very well. The old engineer nodded. He sat down heavily, suddenly looking every one of his 70 years. I spent my whole life building that system. Every day I wondered if it would ever be used. Part of me hoped it would not be. And now? He was quiet for a moment. Now I know that it works. Now I know that humanity can defend itself. That is worth something. On the Eternal Conquest, Admiral Oss watched the human ship following behind him. It made no move to attack, no move to close the distance. It simply followed, a dark shadow that would not go away. His remaining officers clustered around him, their antennae flat with fear. They had never experienced defeat. They did not know how to handle it. "What do we do, Admiral?" one of them asked. Oss thought about the question. He could continue to fight. He could turn his remaining ships and make one final attack, but he had seen what the human weapons could do. Another attack would only mean more death. Or he could retreat, pull back to admit that the Imperium had been beaten by a single ship from a species they had planned to enslave. His pride screamed against it. 1,000 years of conquest screamed against it, but his survival instinct was stronger. "Signal all remaining ships," he said, his voice hollow. "We are withdrawing to no further engagement with the human vessel." The order spread through what remained of the fleet. 50 ships turned toward home, their weapons powered down, their crews silent with shame. On the bridge, Commander O noted the change. "They are standing down, Captain. No weapons active. They are running." Nodded slowly. "Good, now they understand." She turned to the communications officer. "Open a channel to the flagship. Let us finish this." The face of Admiral Oss appeared on screen once more. He looked different now. The contempt was gone from his voice, replaced by something else. Not quite fear, not quite respect, something in between. "Human Captain," he said, "what do you want?" "I want you to listen very carefully," replied. "Your fleet is broken. Over 500 of your ships are destroyed. The rest are fleeing. I could destroy every vessel you have left, including your flagship, in the next 5 minutes, but I am not going to do that." Ah stared at her. "Why?" "Because that is not why I came here. I came to deliver a message, not to commit genocide. Humanity does not want war with we never wanted war. You declared war on us. You threatened our world. You laughed at us when we sent one ship to defend ourselves." She leaned forward, her eyes hard as steel. "You are not laughing now." The Admiral said nothing. There was nothing to say. "Here are my terms," continued. "You will withdraw your declaration of war. You will return to your borders and stay there. You will never threaten Earth or any human colony again. In exchange, I will leave your system and let your remaining ships survive. This is not a negotiation. Accept, or I will finish what I started." The bridge of the eternal conquest was silent. Every officer watched their admiral, waiting for his response. Their pride demanded he refuse. Their survival demanded he accept. Os closed his compound eyes for a long moment. When he opened them, he looked very old. "The Imperium accepts your terms," he said. "The war is over." Nodded once, a wise decision. She cut the transmission and turned to her crew. They looked back at her with exhaustion and triumph and something like wonder. They had done the impossible. They had broken an empire with a single ship. "Take us home," she said. The turned away from the system and began its long journey back to Earth. Behind it, the shattered fleet drifted among the stars, a monument to human determination. The galaxy had laughed at one ship. It would never laugh again. They did not hurry on its return journey. There was no need. The war was over. The enemy was broken. For the first time in weeks, the crew could breathe. Captain walked through the corridors of her ship, speaking with crew members, checking on them. They had done something incredible, and she wanted them to know she was proud. Every engineer, every pilot, every officer had performed perfectly under impossible pressure. She found Chief Engineer in the engine room, running diagnostics on the fold drive. He looked up when she entered, his old face creased with a tired smile. "The engines held up well," he said. "Better than I expected, honestly. We pushed them harder than any test ever did." "Your design saved us," replied, "all of us." Shook his head. "My design was just one piece. The weapons, the navigation, the tactics, the crew that operated everything. We built the together, Captain. Every human who contributed over 2 centuries. This was their victory as much as ours." In the medical bay, Doctor was releasing her last patient, a young engineer who had bumped his head during a sharp maneuver. She wrote something on her and handed it to him. "Rest for the next 2 days," she said. "No heavy work. If you feel dizzy, come back immediately." The engineer nodded and left, sat down heavily, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was. She had not slept properly since before the battle. None of them had. Commander O found her there an hour later, asleep in her chair. He gently placed a blanket over her shoulders and left without waking her. They all needed rest now. The battle was over, but the recovery would take time. On the bridge, Lieutenant Commander Han reviewed the battle data on her console. Over 500 enemy ships destroyed. 0 human casualties. It was the most one-sided victory in recorded galactic history. Future generations would study this battle. They would try to understand how one ship had done the impossible. Knew the answer. It was not just technology. It was not just tactics. It was belief. Belief that humanity could defend itself. Belief that they did not need to bow to anyone. Belief that a species who had only been in space for 3 centuries could stand against an empire that had ruled for 1,000 years. They had not believed. That was their mistake. Navigation Officer Shin plotted their course home. 3-fold jumps just like the journey out. But this time they were not flying toward danger. They were flying toward celebration. "Course set, Captain," she reported when returned to the bridge. 18 days to Earth. "Thank you, Lieutenant," settled into her command chair and looked at the stars on the. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was reacting to what had happened. She wondered what they were saying. She wondered what they were thinking. The answer came sooner than expected. On the 5th day of their return journey, a transmission arrived from Station Prime. It was a formal message from the Galactic Assembly, addressed to Captain and the crew of the. Read it aloud to the assembled crew. "To the humans of Earth, we have witnessed your response to the declaration of war. We have observed the capabilities of your vessel and the courage of your crew. The Galactic Assembly formally recognizes humanity as a full member of the galactic community, with all rights and privileges that status entails. Your species has proven itself. No further demonstration is required." She paused, letting the words sink in. Furthermore, the Assembly requests that Earth send a representative to Station Prime to discuss new trade agreements, defensive alliances, and diplomatic relations. Humanity's voice will be heard in the Great Council. This is our promise. The crew was silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Others joined in. Within seconds, the entire ship was filled with applause and cheers and tears. For 300 years, humanity had been treated as children by the elder races, tolerated but not respected, allowed to exist but never truly accepted. That era was over now. The had changed everything. On Earth, the news spread like fire. The war was over. The had surrendered. One ship had saved the entire human species. People danced in the streets of every city, every colony, every station. Strangers hugged each other and wept with joy. Admiral Park watched the celebration from his office on Earth's orbital command station. Ambassador stood beside him, a glass of champagne in her hand. "They did it," she said softly. "I did not think it was possible, but they did it." Nodded, his eyes were wet, though he would never admit it. And her crew, they will be remembered forever. Every human child from now until the end of time will know their names. What happens now? The Admiral took a slow breath. Now we rebuild. Now we grow. Now we show the galaxy that there was not a fluke. Humanity is here to stay. They arrived home 18 days after the battle. It was met by every ship in Earth's fleet, a parade of vessels that escorted it back to the orbital station. Millions watched from the surface as the dark ship passed overhead, a shadow that had become a legend. Captain stepped off the ship to thunderous applause. Her crew followed, each one greeted as a hero. There were medals and speeches and celebrations that lasted for weeks, but did not stay for all of it. After 3 days, she quietly returned to her ship and walked its empty corridors alone. She ran her hand along the walls, feeling the cold metal beneath her fingers. "Thank you," she whispered "thank you for bringing us home." The ship did not answer, of course. It was just metal and wires and engines, but liked to think it understood. In the archives of Station Prime, a new file was added to the section on humanity. It contained the complete records of the battle, every scan, every transmission, every moment of the fleet's destruction. Future diplomats and generals would study it for centuries. At the end of the file was a single image, the floating alone against the backdrop of space, surrounded by the wreckage of 500 enemy ships. Below the image was a notation, added by the of the hegemony himself. Humanity sent one ship, it was enough. Years passed. The Imperium never recovered from its defeat. Its subject worlds rebelled. Its military collapsed. Within a century, it had fallen from the greatest power in the galaxy to a minor state, barely able to defend its own borders. Humanity, meanwhile, grew stronger. New ships were built, based on this design but improved with each generation. Trade flourished. Alliances formed. The species that had been laughed at became one of the most influential members of the galactic community. And in every human school, in every colony across the stars, children learned the story of They learned about Captain and her brave crew. They learned about the day the galaxy laughed at one ship, and then learned to never laugh again. The message had been delivered. It would never be forgotten.